Okay, hi everyone. As you can tell, we are in a different spot due to the shelter in place. I'm no longer at school anymore, but we will continue. So we're in week 7 of our reading pop culture and reading rhetorical analysis. So this week we are going over chapter 4 of reading pop culture, and it's all about music. So there are 4 different articles, and the first one is called Elevate My Mind, Identities for Women in Hip-Hop Love Songs by Pamela Hollander. So in her essay, it's an explanation about different types of love songs in hip-hop. And first she mentions, in quote, discourses, and that simply means that is like how artists become influential, and it basically is how they grow their identity to like show themselves through their music. And then she discusses women and when they first started in the hip hop sector. They were always viewed not as strong as men were in the rapping game and were sexualized, but they fed into it basically. So they eventually grew and created it into their own spice. And when it came to rapping and singing about love, both women and men had to be somewhat cautious. Men couldn't show their feelings too much, or else they'd be portrayed as sensitive, and women couldn't either, or else they'd be seen as easy and vulnerable to men. So that's the first one. The second essay is called Country Music, Openness to Experience, and the Psychology of Culture War by Will Wilkinson. So country is viewed as the basic dirt roads, beer, fall in love, America, and everything you can imagine in Alabama, basically. So there's more to it when it comes to conservatives and liberals. Most of the music aims itself towards those two, conservatives and liberals, because the lyrics and how it can be relatable. It is a culture war where everyone wants their kids to grow up the same way they did. So that's the second essay. And the third one is called Seduced by Perfect Pitch, How to Auto-Tune Conquered Pop Music by Leslie Anderson. Autotune became a way for those who couldn't really sing to make a career in the music industry. And autotune became huge within the whole industry, not just pop. So listeners even protested to get rid of autotune. Society just wanted the real version of everyone's voice, leading to pressure to artists, like pressuring artists that they really couldn't sing, like Kesha. That is an example. So not all artists use autotune, and some do not excessively, but they use it to communicate what they say. It is basically a part of their art. And they just want people to be able to appreciate that it is a way of expressing themselves. And that is the third one. And the last one is called Riffs of Passage by Tina Vasquez. So a Latin-based music community, Julio Salgado, he created his music in ways through a group. They shared, so that group, the Latin-based music community, they shared and spread their culture through performing with others that didn't have their green papers, and they weren't ashamed of it. One member actually broke off and made songs about his own life and how deportation and illegal influence, and how being illegal influenced his music. And he said he felt at home and he was able to share his culture. Sorry about that. And so that is for reading pop culture. And now we'll go on to rhetorical analysis. So this week we're reading chapter 5. And chapter 5 is called The Resources of Argument. And so the main point is about the key building blocks of rhetorical action in an argument. The argument doesn't always have to be a quarrel between two. It can also be referred to more as an academic sense. They are a structure and way of organizing material, and it is a process of giving reasons for or against some positions. So the shape or character of an argument is determined by kind of claims it makes and the conclusion it draws. So, for example, that is a dog. There was no educational evidence, and it was just a logical inferential leap. There are times when we can make these claims, and there are other times when we cannot because the situation requires evidence. So an example of that would be a basketball player. He would always collapse when he went to the hospital, and tests showed that he had cardiac problems. So they inferentially leaped to the conclusion that that's the reason why he died. There needs to be some sort of justification for claims. So there's an issue when it comes to an argument, and it is a fundamental point of dispute, essentially taking a side based on evidence and opinion. So there's a list of questions that can be asked. So the first is a question of fact. It is a dispute about what evidence exists and how it should be interpreted. The second question is a question of value. So it is a dispute about what is good, desirable, useful, or perhaps even about what is ethical or moral. And the last question is of policy. This one involves a course of action, so basically what we should do or what we should not do. So these are all the factors that must be taken into consideration to be able to take a side based on strong evidence and opinion. And finally, one must consider the dimensions of rhetorical action. So the list includes instrumental, which is basically a tool, consumatory, so instrumental, which is a tool, and then consumatory, purpose in action itself. That was the first one. Second one, justificatory, and that is offering reason, and ritualistic, which is participatory. That's the second one. The third one is logical, necessary links, and associative, learned from personal experience. The fourth one is literal, descriptive words, with figurative, which describes internal state. And the fifth one is factual, verifiable, and psychological, appeals to needs, drives, and desires. So that is it for week 7 and rhetorical analysis. We'll see you next week.